The priest king, that's what they call him. The most famous figure from the most advanced civilization of the Bronze Age. But there is one problem. There's no evidence that he was a priest, and no evidence that he was a king. A British excavation team pulled him from the rubble of Mohenjo-daro in 1926. Small, broken, face down between two crumbling walls. No inscription, no name, nothing identifying who he was or what he did. They called him the priest king because he looked important. And in every civilization they have ever studied, important men were kings. Egypt had pharaohs. Sumer had divine rulers. That's how the civilizations worked. So this one must work the same way. But except it doesn't. Over 1,500 sites excavated, 140 years of digging, the largest Bronze Age civilization on Earth. And not one palace, not one royal tomb, not one king's name on a single brick anywhere. Egypt carved its rulers 20 meters tall. Sumer installed them in temples. Akkad declared them gods. This civilization left one figure, 17.5 centimeters found in the dirt. So either there's a king buried in the 90% we haven't dug, or the civilization was running on something no one else on the earth had figured out. But the question is not who this man is. It's what kind of people made him. And here's the catch. We have only excavated 5 to 10%. So I'm not going to guess who this figure was from a fraction of one city. Instead, I'm going to walk through what this civilization actually built, piece by piece, and let you see for yourself what kind of administration is hiding inside the evidence. Because the more you look, the stranger this gets. So let's step inside. Pick up a brick at Mohenjo-daro. Measure it, length to width to height. 1:2:4. Now travel 600 kilometers to Harappa. Pick up a brick. Same ratio. Go to Lothal on the coast of Gujarat. Same ratio. Go to Dholavira in the run of Kutch. Same ratio. Go to Rakhigadi in the heartland of Haryana. Same ratio. 1,000 years, 1,000,000 square kilometers, every brick the same. In any civilization you know, this is where you'd find a royal decree, a king's administration stamping a building code into law. Here, no decree, no stamp, no name. The ratio, it just holds. Walk through the streets of Mohenjo-daro, north to south, east west, manufactured right angles, perpendicular so clean that they hold across entire city grid. This wasn't a tradition. This is someone with a cord and a stake producing identical angles in city after city across generations. But there's no planning office, no architect seal, no blueprint claiming credit. The precision, it just exists. The person behind it, it doesn't. Pick up a weight at Mohenjo-daro, small stone cubes. Carry it to Lothal. It works. A merchant at other end of the civilization trusts the measurement at the other end. Not only locally, when we go in Sumer, when we go in Giraffe, all around the world, wherever there are Indus artifacts, the Indus weights are the same. But no king seal. No inscription saying whose authority guarantees fairness. The trust is built into the object itself. Now look at the drains. Everywhere connected, covered channels, controlled gradient, waste flowing away from the living space. More sophisticated than European cities built 3,000 years later. But no palace directing public work. No ministry maintaining infrastructure. The system is more consistent than anything built by civilizations that had all of these things. And then there is one more number, one that should stop you. The Gini coefficient, a modern measurement of wealth inequality. For Harappan cemeteries, the score is 0.5. For contemporary same era, same level of civilization, the score is 0.80 to 0.88. That's not a different degree of inequality. That's a different philosophy of what a human life is worth. Nobody here was hoarded. Nobody was sacrificed for a ruler. Nobody carved a king into a cliff. And now it's time that you stack it all. Bricks standardized without decree, streets engineered without an office, weights trusted without a seal, drains managed without a palace, wealth distributed at a ratio the modern world still hasn't achieved, and not one visible ruler behind any of it. The priest king now stops looking like a mystery about one man. He starts looking like evidence of a system that made individual power irrelevant. So again, the question changes. It's no longer who was the king. It's what kind of administration runs itself without a king. If this is the first time you're on this channel, kindly subscribe and like this video, because what comes next is the part nobody talks about. Let's build the profile, not what we want to answer, but what the evidence requires. Imagine a new Indus city being founded. No king sends a decree. No royal architect arrives with a blueprint. Instead, a builder shows up. He carries the brick ratio in his hand because his master taught it to him. The same way his master's master taught it, 1:2:4. He doesn't think about it. He just makes bricks. The ratio lives in the skill, not in the document. Next to him, a surveyor. He has a cord and stakes. He lays the first street north-south, then east-west. The right angle is manufactured, same method, every site, every time. Not because someone told him to do in a way, because this is how it has been always done. The method itself is the authority. Nearby, someone is building a drain, same gradient, same width, connecting to the same system. Not because a palace sent an order. Because the knowledge of how drains work is carried by people who build drains, generation after generation. At a market, a merchant sets out weights, same cubes, same ratios. The traders arrive from 600 kilometers away. They don't need to know the local ruler. He just needs to know the weights are right. And they are, because the system is consistent and the system guarantees it, not the king. This is how a civilization standardizes without centralizing. The knowledge lives in the specialist. The process replicates through training. The standard holds because the practice holds. No one person is running the system. The system is running itself. And now the ground starts making sense. The brick match because the training matches. The streets align because the method is the same. The weight work because the standard is shared. The drains connect because the knowledge is communal. No palaces required. No king required. The procedure is a never-time king. Now, does anyone describe the system? Is there a record from this region that matches what the ground is showing us? Well, there is, and the match stops you cold. The Krishna Yajurveda describes exactly this world, not as an idea, but as an operational reality. It describes a society where no single person holds all the knowledge. One group holds the procedure, the exact sequence, the timing, the repetition. Another holds measurement, the ability to reproduce the same structure at different sites. Another knows material, which fuel, which temperature, which stone. Another manages the animals, selection, processing, seasonal cycle. Picture it running. A man who knows the procedure doesn't need to know how to measure. The man who measures doesn't need to know which fuel to burn. Each specialist holds their domain. The system holds all of them. And the text assumes that this isn't new. It assumes this is already how things work. Fixed spaces for fixed procedures, fixed fire installations separate from domestic life, water management built into the activity zone, standardized tools used across generations. This is the Indus Valley, described in a text from the same region. Not symbol to symbol, but system to system. The ground built the profile. The text describes the same profile. But the system still has a vulnerability because distributed experts explain how things run. It explains how things stay stable. How do you prevent one person from seizing everything? Look at what happens when power has no check. In Egypt, the pharaoh is a living god. The king is by nature divine. He is Horus, an offspring of Ra. Nobody constrains him. He builds 4 statues of himself, each 20 meters tall, flanking his own temples. When he dies, servants are killed so he won't be alone. His word is a divine law. There is no assembly above him. There is no framework that he answers to, because he is the framework in Egypt. That is what unconstrained power looks like, and history tells us. And it produces exactly what you would expect: colossal ego, hoarded wealth, human sacrifice, and a Gini coefficient of 0.88. Now, look at what the Vedic text describes. The Rig Veda describes 2 assemblies: Sabha, which includes elders, experts, judicial authority. Then we have Samiti, the broader population, gathering to debate and hold leadership accountable. Atharvaved 7.1.1 calls them the daughter of Prajapati, the creator. The assemblies, they aren't created by the king. They exist before him. His authority is borrowed. Theirs is foundational. In Rig Veda Mandal 10 191.3, common council, common assembly, common purpose. The Rajan, the leader, exists inside this framework, not above it. The Vedic index clearly records that clear signs that conquered between king and assembly determined prosperity. So if the king and the assembly, they don't align, the system fails. Not the king, the system fails. And underneath both the specialist and the assemblies sits something deeper, a framework that no king creates and no king can override. And that framework is dharma. Watch how it works in practice. Chandragupta Maurya, I'll come to him in a moment, he built the most powerful empire India had ever seen. He could have done anything: build a monument, declare himself divine, hoard the treasury. Instead, he walks away, becomes a monk, fasts to death in a cave. Why? Because the system he inherited says you serve dharma. Dharma doesn't serve you. Your power is borrowed. The framework existed before you and it continues after you. When the service is done, you just step aside. And that's not philosophy. That's a mechanism, a self-correcting system that prevents power from classifying. In Egypt, there was no mechanism. The pharaoh is the system. When he dies, his wealth goes underground with him. In the Vedic model, the system is the mechanism. The king comes and goes, the framework stays. Now lay this over the Indus archaeology. No palace, because the assembly doesn't need one man's house to be the biggest. No royal tomb, because the wealth doesn't belong to the ruler. No king's name on surfaces, because the system doesn't need a name. It needs compliance, a Gini of 0.5, because the framework prevents accumulation and discrimination. 3 layers: specialist running the material world, assemblies constraining the political world, dharma constraining the moral world. All visible in archaeology and all described in the Vedas. Now let's come back to priest king, 7.5 centimeter. Kinoya says figures like this probably do not represent rulers, but may commemorative statue of a clan leader or ancestral figure. The label without foundation. Now, honestly, the scholarship also says that there is not a single notice of actual work done by the Sabha. The mechanics aren't fully spelled out. The Indus script is still undeciphered. I'm not calling this as a proof. I'm calling it structural compatibility. The ground shows a system and the text describes a system, and they match. The full material comparison, fire, copper, water tools, continuity, is broken down layer by layer in a separate investigation. That's linked for the complete case. But there's one more question, because if this system only existed in the Indus Valley, it's an anomaly. If it survived, it's a tradition. So does the Vedic model survive the collapse, or does it die with the cities? The honest answer, the structure changes, but the character doesn't. After the Indus cities emptied, kingdoms appeared. Janpads, Mahajanpads, then empires, centralized authority, visible rulers, thrones, dynasties. The structure moved towards kingship, and that's real. But watch what those kings actually did with power. Chandragupta Maurya, first undisputed emperor, built the largest empire the subcontinent had ever seen. Then renounced everything, became a monk. The most powerful man in India, and his monument is a cave on a hillside. The Rashtrakutas carved Kailasa from a single mountain. 200,000 tons of basalt dedicated to Shiva, not to the king, not surviving Rashtrakuta palaces. Now Raja Rajendra Chola named the Brihadeshwara temple after himself, Rajrajeshwaram. Kings are kings, power finds expression. This isn't a clean 3,000-year timeline. But the dominant instinct, the recurring character across millennia is this: the ruler serves the civilization, not the other way around. And here's the sharp point: the post-Indus kingdoms inherit the morals, dharma, accountability, service before self. But they changed the structure. Kings appeared, thrones appeared. Then the Indus Valley had none of that, which means the closest material match to what Vedas describe: distributed expertise, collective assemblies, a system running without a visible center, isn't the Mahajanpads, isn't the Mauryan Empire, it isn't Guptas, it isn't any kingdom. It's the civilization that mainstream scholarship says isn't Vedic at all. And if you're still watching and haven't subscribed, hit that button now. That's what keeps the investigation like this going. And like this video because it's free and it helps this video reach more people who are asking the same questions. Now, there's a moment when every moral inheritance breaks. The Delhi Sultanate, 1206 CE, a different architectural grammar, Victory Tower, dynastic fortresses, personal tombs built to immortalize the individuals. The Qutub Minar, Tughlaqabad, monuments whose purpose is the builder's name. Everything before, from Indus drains to Ashoka's edicts to monuments carved for Shiva, follow one character. Everything after follows a different one. But that's a different investigation altogether. Now let's come back to the statue one last time. 17.5 centimeter, statite, half eyes closed, a terrifoil cloak with red pigment drilled into stone and no name. Found face down in a passage, in a city that was already emptying. No throne room above him, no treasury beneath him, no inscription naming him. For 100 years, the question has been, who was this man? But that was always the wrong question. The right question is, what kind of people choose to organize power so that no single man becomes the center? People whose expertise is distributed across specialists, not centralized in a throne. People whose governance runs through assemblies older than any king. People whose moral framework is designed to outlast every ruler who serves it. The ground shows this civilization. The Vedas describe the civilization. The later kingdom inherit its morals but changed its structure. And the Indus Valley, the civilization nobody calls Vedic, remains the closest match to what the Vedic text was actually describing. This statue is not a king. He never was. He was a witness to a civilization that tried something the rest of the ancient world never attempted. And that the system could be greater than one man. And for 3,000 years, that idea kept outliving every man who has served it. This is it from my side today. This is Harry signing off. Stay curious.